All right, YouTube, we're back again for the video. Guys, let's talk about something kind of important here. Something that I haven't really talked about before. Um, let's talk about 5 things that you need to focus on and do going into the new season. So, in no particular order, because they're all going to be important, um, and they're all going to benefit you in the long run. So we'll just start out with the first one. So the first one is study the meta. A lot of guys get on and have like no clue that, this character and that character is nerfed. They have no clue that the RE45 was buffed in the beginning of the season, and then middle of the season it got nerfed, right? And no one's using it, right? All these things are important because when you're playing ranked, this is more so for the ranked players. When you're playing ranked, you want to be able to use the best weapons, right? There's no point in being like, oh, I don't like the longbow, even though the longbow's hitting for a crazy amount of damage, or oh, I don't like the havoc because the havoc is hard to use. And I don't want to use the havoc, right? Like, get out of your head. You don't want to use certain weapons because you're not used to them or because you suck with them. If they're meta, use them, right? Don't use weapons that are not in the player pool. Keep track of what's going on in the season, right? Use the weapons that are the strongest. Like, if they feel cheesy to you, so be it, right? Like, there's other weapons that, aren't going to be as strong, but still viable. Use them as well, right? But don't use weak weapons that are not even in the meta just because you don't want to be like everybody else. Like, that's mistake number one. All the top players in rank are going to be using the best weapons in the game, especially if it's something that has never been buffed before, or there's some major change with the meta. Use the meta. Don't be one of those guys who's stubborn or who just doesn't know what's going on, because in 2026 there's AI, there's Google, there's everything you possibly need to figure out what's being used right now. So don't limit yourselves, don't hold yourself back, don't hold your team back. Use the meta weapons, guys. Number two, we can say is team building exercises in and out of the game. So what does that mean, right? That means having fun, right? Talking to your teammates, right? Being able to understand what they like from, on a personal level, right? Teammate's name might be Prodigy, but his real name might be Timothy. Talk to him like he's Timothy sometimes, right? Ask him how his day is going, really give a fuck about him. Um, don't just play with him. Talk to him about the hard things, right? Not just the easy things. Like when you're winning, don't just be ready to talk about the win and just celebrate the win. When you guys lose, be able to also say, hey, what can we do better? Right? I'm trying to win. We're all trying to win. Keep winning the goal. And talk about the hard things, right? Build that rapport. Talk about things that, need to be improved so you guys can, reach your goals, right? Um, oftentimes there's a lot of teams that avoid conversations, avoid, just getting on and maybe just having fun, right? Maybe, while you're grinding, take a night, you guys all play another game, right? Have some fun, kind of change up the routine. Then the next day, you guys say, hey, it was fun tonight. Let's get back on the grind and let's get on at this time and let's crush it tomorrow. Now you got the morale high. You guys get on, you guys crush it because you just had a great night and everybody's happy. And even if you don't have a successful night, at least you guys like each other. That's important. Especially when these seasons they get long, man. The games get long. When you're hitting D2, D1 early in the season, midway in the season, you're in these really, really long queues. And, when you're getting high up there in rank, it requires a lot of focus. You guys are tired, you guys are hungry, you know what I mean? And you guys can be a little bit hangry. And so having that chemistry and being able to rely on each other, somebody being able to be the comedic comedic relief and make you guys laugh, smile. Like those things are important. So don't just neglect it and think you have to get on solely just to grind Apex. It's bigger than that. But like I said, keep the main thing, and you guys will be successful. Number three, now to me this is a huge one, and it's setting milestones. So what does setting milestones look like, right? So for me, I've hit masters multiple times. I have a friend named KisProdigy. He's hit masters multiple times. We've hit it together. We've hit it separately. One of the things, if I were to play with somebody who was not masters ever, I would set milestones. Why would I set milestones? Because you only have so much amount of time in your day to play. You only have a certain number of days in a season before a split, and just in total of the season to play. Knowing what the top guys are doing, and when they're reaching certain ranks will better help give you all an understanding of why games may feel harder, why lobbies feel easier, why they feel like you guys are on the same level, right? And knowing that is important. So, what I mean by that, right? By setting milestones. So, usually, if you go to Twitch, go to YouTube, go to Twitch, whatever, you're gonna notice that most of the top players hit they hit that masters the pred within about a week of a new season, just about a week, and if not a week, about 2 weeks. What does that mean for you when you play? That means your games are going to be harder, they're going to be more sweaty, and if you know you're not a team that is at that level yet, then you're going to want to be more realistic about your goals. So by setting milestones, you can say, okay, hey guys, if you know this first week is going to be very hard and it's going to be very challenging. We need to be hitting, let's say you're gold 3 right now. We need to try to see if we can get to gold 1 or plat 4 by Saturday or Sunday, right? The new season is on a Tuesday. We need to hit that by Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That helps gauge how quickly you guys are able to go through a rank. It puts a clear expectation each game that you guys play, each day that you guys play, right? You need to be gaining RP, right? You're not mindlessly playing and being like, okay, what are we doing today? Why are we playing today? How hard do I need to go today? You know exactly how hard you need to go because you know what the goal is by the end of the week, by this day, right? So by doing that, it starts to train not just your teammates, but it trains you guys' minds to know that, like, we're not just playing willy nilly, right? We step on the gas. You're playing with a purpose every time you get on, and it allows you to be able to say, okay, this is the time it takes, and you can feel how realistic that timetable is to be able to hit certain ranks. Because, like I said, when you when you go from platinum to diamond or from gold to platinum, the RP levels change, which means the games get harder. The more RP you need to start gaining, the easier certain things are and the harder certain things are. And so if you map out we need to be hitting this at this time, right? And you're not doing it, you can start to say, okay, well, what are we doing wrong here? And if you're hitting them, you can say, okay, what are we doing right? Figure out what you're doing wrong or what you're doing right, and you're able to take that and say, this is what works best for us as a team, right? We're hitting diamond by week 3, right? Perfect. Now going into diamond, you got negative what, 60 something, which means every game counts more. And so you have to prioritize having a bigger window on the back end to play and lose RP and gain RP. So if you have 6 weeks to play with, you hit diamond on week 2, now you got 4 weeks to play with to try to get masters or pred, right? That's a good amount of time to try to do it. Let's say you got 12 weeks, right? And it takes you 6 weeks to hit diamond. Now you know that if it was that hard for you to hit diamond and it took you 6 weeks, it's going to take you maybe 2 times that amount of time to hit masters because you're losing more RP now in diamond. And it took you so much longer to hit diamond. So that's how you have to kind of like gauge those milestones. And like I said, it keeps your teammates honest, it keeps you honest, because now you guys have to be working on the back end. So what I'm doing right here, right? I'm just in the firing range. I'm in the firing range. I'm just shooting around, and but this is what you want to be doing. So you got a teammate that's not on, you need to be in the firing range. You got two teammates that are not on, you need to be in the firing range, right? All of your teammates are on, but you guys are warming up, you need to be in the firing range, right? You can be able to understand what you need to be doing, right? To get to the next level, right? So setting milestones is good. And then set individual milestones. Okay, week one, we're playing. I'm just not feeling comfortable hitting my shots with the R9. Okay, give yourself a individual milestone. I need to be comfortable tracking like this with the R9. I want to give myself 3 days. And so what does that mean? That means I can't come in here and just spend 20 minutes in the firing range if I'm trying to get better in 3 days. I need to be spending a lot of time just doing this, right? Until it feels comfortable. I need to be doing this. And so that means you need to up your practice. So instead of you being in the firing range for 20 minutes and only doing this a couple of times, you need to be doing that a lot of times for maybe an hour, for maybe an hour and 30 minutes, maybe 2 hours, if that's what it takes. Setting those individual milestones as well as team milestones, those are things that are important. So it helps you guys all be able to gauge yourself and then your team. The third one I would say is skill assessments and legend assessments. So I'll put the skill assessment kind of with the setting milestones, but that can get a lot more specific. So skill assessments as an individual and maybe even as your teammates, right? You're looking at your teammates and you're going, okay, where are we at realistically right now? Where am I at as a player realistically? And that requires you to be like super, super honest about where you are, right? So if you know that you've only ever hit D4 every time, then you have to be honest and say, how long does it take me to hit Diamond 4 by myself? Okay, if it takes you the whole season pretty much to hit D4 and you're really kind of struggling and you're not really carrying your teams when you play, be honest about that. Be like, okay, I can improve and really get better. Okay, where can you get better? Okay, I can get better with my communication. I can get better with my positioning. I can get better with my with being maybe too reckless when I'm taking fights, right? If I'm taking a fight and I see a guy right here, and my first instinct is to climb something and then jump straight into him and shoot, and I die, maybe I should think about changing up how I'm approaching a fight. So if I see a guy here and there's cover here, maybe I should start to do this. Little tweaks that help make a fight better. That's what a skill assessment is. Or you say, you know what, I'm on controller and I'm trying to track a dummy, but my sensitivity is too slow. Maybe you change your sensitivity so you can track your enemy. That's a skill assessment. Don't stick with the slow sensitivity, even if you're on controller or mouse and key, if you know that you can't track an enemy at full speed. Those are skill assessments as an individual. Now you take that into your team and you say, okay, how are we as a team when we fight? Out of 10 fights as a team, how many fights are we losing and winning? If you're winning 5 out of those 10 fights, okay, you guys aren't bad, but you could be better. If you're losing, if you're losing, if you're winning 3 out of those 10 fights, right? You guys have work to do. Now figure out where that is. What's going on there? And usually it's a bunch of different things, but that's a skill assessment. You look at the team and say, where are we at realistically? If you're winning majority of your fights in rank as a team, but maybe there's something that could be improved, right? Like communication could be a little bit faster, right? Maybe you're relying too much on skill and it's getting the job done, but maybe if you communicate it faster, it could be even better. That's a skill assessment as a team. It's not saying that you guys are, there's always something to work on, but that's something that you should be happy for. You should be happy to hear that there's something that we can do to make us even better. So those are those team and individual type of skill assessments that will take you to that next level in ranked and your competitive play. Um, and like I said, to be able to do that as an individual and as a team, you have to be super super honest and vulnerable with yourself, and you cannot lie to yourself, right? You cannot lie to yourself. If you're lying to yourself and you're lying to your teammates, and that's not going to improve like anybody's gameplay or the team chemistry. So, there has to be this fear that's gone from feeling like you cannot be honest because it feels like it's criticism. So, that's part of that skill assessment. The last one is study the pros, guys. Study the pros. For me, I always loved how certain players played and how effortless and smooth certain players played. A couple guys I really loved was Imperial Hal back in the day. He kept everything very simple, but he was super effective at keeping it simple. Um, and obviously he's the most dominant Apex player in my opinion when it comes to especially competitive play. Other guys like Albert Laley, other guys like Roz, who's an Asian player, right? Very smooth, controlled players. Very different than your players like Fade, who are very fast and twitchy, right? I don't. That's not my style. And so, why would I watch a guy like Fade when he's not my style of player? To me, it would be better to watch somebody like Hal or Roz, who's my style of player. And I'm not just watching for funsies, right? I'm not just watching with popcorn in my hand, and I'm not, I'm just looking for the cool stuff. I'm watching because I want to understand. I want to understand how Roz approaches this guy right here, right? So if I'm Roz and I'm watching him on Twitch, and I see that he sees an enemy right here, how is how is it that how does he view this player in this situation versus how I would view him? And so I'm going to put myself in this situation and say, okay, well, if I was Roz, I would just start shooting from here. But let me see what Roz does. Okay, Roz slides to cover first, then peeks out, but not too far. And like that's what you're looking for. You're looking for the player's tendencies on what makes this player really, really good. That's what you're looking for. If I'm watching, okay, so if I'm watching Roz, I would, this is what I would do if I were not Roz. I would climb this and try to do this. But what would Roz do if he was right here behind this rock? Roz would stay behind the rock, jiggle peek. He would probably do this. He would get the crack. Then he would probably do this, take his time. Then Roz would come in for the kill. That's what Roz would probably do. Now I say, okay, you know what? He just dropped 20 kills doing that. Maybe I should take those tendencies and apply them to my game. Take your ego out of it and say, "Oh, I don't want to change how I play. I don't want to change what I do." Have you dropped 20 kills? No. Have you been successful past diamond? No. Have you done the hard work? No. Have you been successful at a certain level? No. So maybe take your ego out of it, take your pride out of it, and say, I'm going to do what this player who's really good, who's done more than me, I'm going to do what he does. I'm going to implement his healthy tendencies and I'm going to apply that to my game. So you start to do that over time, right? You start to do that over time. and you say, okay, you know what? I'm watching somebody like I'm watching somebody like Alliance Hockey's. He's playing ranked. He's a smooth player. Okay, he's really using the scout. Wow, I really love how he's using the scout. Okay, he's dropping a consistent 2 to 3 to 4K damage every rank game. Maybe I should think about using the scout. Okay, like this is what you pick up on. You don't just say, "Ooh, he dropped 20 kills. Oh my god, he's so good." No, no. Why did he drop 20 kills? What made him successful? Was he pushing in really fast? Was he reckless with his with his entries? You know, was he playing cover around him? Like those are the things you look for when you watch pro players. Okay, and when you find those things that pro players do that work, you implement them. And a lot of pro players do a lot of things well, and they're very, very small things that drastically change the outcome of the game. Those are the things you want to pay attention to. And so I encourage you guys to implement those things. You know, long practice sessions, right, where you're breaking down yourself and your film and your teammates, watching these pro players play, taking their tendencies, doing skill assessments with yourself individually and with your team, and be honest about where you guys are and where you are as an individual. Um, do team building exercises in and out of Apex. Have fun, right? But keep the main thing, which is you want to win. And lastly, guys, study the meta. Study the meta, study the meta, study the meta. Don't use weapons that are not in the meta rotation. If they're not in the meta rotation, but they're not a bad weapon and you're really good with it, use it. But use the strong weapons. That's why they're in the game. They're in the game to be used, not to be avoided. So listen, guys, this is what I want to kind of give you leading into the new season coming Tuesday. Take what I've told you and say, you know what, I want to be better and apply this to the new season.